Hi there, it's me, Kate, Octarian Retriever, linguist, founder of Multilingual and Lingua Plus. I'm a multilingual, probably like you. Maybe you're bilingual, but I know for sure that we all make mistakes and we even don't realize them. Probably you've spent like years and years learning languages. Perhaps it's your hobby, maybe it's, part of your profession. But I'm sure you also make mistakes and you even don't know to them, but natives pick them up. You're not alone. I'm in the same category, and it's fine. We just need to have a look at those mistakes and think what we can do in order to improve the situation. Step by step, no stress. Let's dive into that. First of all, of course, it's about direct translation. Sometimes you may even not know that there is slightly different phrase for a particular, say, thought. Let's say that you are translating from Spanish to English. Um, Instead of, saying I'm 30 years old, in English you would say like I have 30 years. Or maybe like you're trying to translate from English to Spanish from like I'm embarrassed, you would say like estoy embarazada. But no, no estoy embarazada, tengo vergüenza, right? Or like in German, you will be trying to go like ich bin heiß, like I'm hot, but no, this is not the way. This is like mir ist heiß, for instance. And there's so many more, obviously, set phrases and collocations. So what you need to do, of course, you need to check the correct, phrase like in the target language. But also what I think really helpful is to go to dictionaries. I know, especially monolingual dictionaries, I know that right now with all the apps, translators, we don't use dictionaries anymore, but like thesaurus, right? Monolingual dictionary where you get explanations in that target language with examples, synonyms, antonyms, context helps so much. I've been using it, I still use it, and I typically recommend as well thesaurus in your target language just to learn, like to get immersed, like to think a local, right? So like a native speaker being like, oh, this is a way how I can say it in a different way, right? Not all. Of course, we get in the same trap with grammar. There are certain grammar constructions, especially with frequent words like to be, to have, to go, and so on, that can't be like they can't be translated yet directly. And there we can also think about prepositions. If we take like Romance languages, French, Italian, Spanish, there are so many situations where in English you have a preposition, in French you don't have preposition, and then you need to figure out, like how to adjust. Or like phrases, I've been running for an hour, like you will be trying to translate to Spanish something like estoy corriendo or something, which is wrong because you need to say yo llevo, right? Or una hora corriendo. And so like with German, something like, um, driving, yeah, like car, because in German will be like more like I go with a car. And here as well, I suggest you have a look at those expressions. You ask your native friends, your colleagues, teachers, and you put them down separately. I remember like years ago, like half of my life ago, when I was learning Spanish, the first sessions, the first lessons were dedicated to those specific grammar constructions with tener, tengo, estoy, because they are radically different from English, for instance, like other languages. So you need to really nail it down and get it like written here, on your forehead, right? But then, of course, it's not only about words, it's about intonation. You may have very good pronunciation, fantastic, you've been working on that, I believe so important. Then you need to pay attention to your rhythm, to your melody. Um, Endings, right? How you finish at the end, whether in your native language or other comfortable languages, the intonation typically goes up at the end, or it just, goes like heartbeat, or it's flat. So you need to learn how to readjust it. One of the best ways, of course, listening to the natives, mimicking them, repeating after them, picking it up. Often not even thinking logically about it, just first trying it out like a song. Because if we think about it, right, so language is just a song, a melody that we can also, yeah, understand, communicate. Of course, then it's all about what's happening inside our brain. And I've talked about it. I've talked about code switching, yeah, like bilingual challengers. But here in particular, let's say you're in a stressful situation. Maybe you're angry or something happened. What happens to you? Like to you personally, internally, do you switch to a most comfortable language? Do you switch or to maybe a couple of languages and you're mixing them up? What happens there in your head, in your brain? Because there may be this brain default, and you need to work on that. The same is about emotions. Maybe you lack emotional depth in your target language or whichever language where you're making, yeah, those mistakes. This is very interesting because they were saying, like, I think it was like, for spies, that if a woman gives a birth, so she will cry probably in her native language. Or if a person loses their consciousness and then wakes up, they will be speaking their native language and so on. I've had multiple occasions where something would happen to me in one of my languages, and I would get to my senses, to reality, I'll get conscious, and I would continue in that language, in the language of the environment. Why did it happen? You ask me, I don't know. Am I good at that? Guess so. But I feel that the circumstances were set in that way that my brain would just go and fire responses in the language I would be asked in. Like I had a situation years ago, a decade ago, when I blacked out completely in a very stressful, like for my body, kind of context. And when I opened my eyes, I was still kind of in hysterics. I had a panic attack, which was, on top of some serious issues with my digestive system. No, and I was there on the floor at the uni, and the Italian crew from hospital, emergency ambulance came in, and you would think I would be switching to, let's say, at least English or something. No way. I just like as soon as they started speaking, I wasn't thinking about which language I'm speaking, what's happening. They started talking to me. They were trying, to calm me down, ta ta ta. And then I started responding and started responding in Italian. And only days later, when I was analyzing the situation, I said, oh damn, this is how it works. Probably there is an input and then there is an output. I'm sharing this with you so that you could observe yourself, see what happens. Like a few weeks ago, I was also super stressed. I was at the airport. I was so stressed that my brain wasn't working to unlock my luggage. But as soon as we got to the point of security, and there were a few Chinese people totally lost and were trying to cut through the queue, I could understand that they were trying to say, like, well, where are we going? To the left, to the right, to the turn. And I just turned to them in completely like off brain and started like, did he say, like, like, wait. And I started saying just, simple phrases in Chinese to my own surprise when I also like when I got out of there, I was like, where did that come from? Like, I'm like, yeah, I'm practicing Chinese, but not that much to get at this point. So this is the same for you. Try to observe and see what happens when you actually um, say experience certain situations where you may switch languages. Maybe try not to switch, but not to switch can be very stressful as well, right? So suggestion would be deepen your emotional connection. Find out how you can incorporate more that language into your internal process. I've talked about this, how not directly translate, how to develop your inner voice in the target language. And then, of course, immerse yourself, yeah, in the language and culture, or like maybe create an activity that will trigger that language. Check out other videos. And then, of course, what you need to pay attention to, it's sounding more natural, um, not too polite. I also still do it sometimes, especially like in formal like setting. In formal setting, obviously, I will be like all polite and all, but you need to pay attention to this. It's like from textbook. You may come and be like, "Oh, good afternoon, ta ta ta," or like "Buenos dias," and da da da, instead of being like, "Oh, ¿qué onda? ¿Cómo estás?" or like, "Hey." Because we are trained, especially in formal settings, we are trained this way. In order to break it, to break this pattern, this, let's say, manner of speaking, what you need to do, you need to watch more of the movies. You need to watch all this like blogs and vlogs, so the YouTube channels where you can hear how people speak in the street, right? Learn slang, informal speech, learn all the sounds, collocations, but don't be crazy about it, like, yeah, I need to switch. It will happen naturally. The more you will talk to your native friends and colleagues, the more you will find yourself in that language, in the culture, in more informal settings, the more relaxed you will feel, and the more fluent this flow of speech will become. And that's it for today. Please practice. Don't feel ashamed, embarrassed, not embarazado, if you make mistakes. It's totally normal, totally fine. Practice makes perfect. And if you like this video, subscribe, follow, like, and if you have any story to share, please comment and we will discuss in our community. And I'll see you in next videos.